This is just such a fine sketch here, Martin. I really, really enjoyed that. I really wish that I could take a look at the next page right here, because there's so much to say about, you know, the really nice way you ease off and the way you trade off with instruments and everything else. But you have entered as a minim participant, so let's just focus on the first two screens, because there is certainly enough to think about just with those. So let's start off right here at the beginning and think about bowing, right? So everything is fine here. You don't need to write out the full consordino. You could just have the abbreviation consord, right? So you have a soft dynamic, and you have these very, very long bowed phrases, right? So you have basically left the piano phrasing in the string parts. So this means that the violinists are going to interpret this as one long bowing over all of the notes. And the problem with that is that, I mean, well, at piano it's okay, because they're not really putting down that much force, so the bow is moving a little slower, and that means that the bow might have time to cover all of these notes. However, you really are putting the player at a kind of a disadvantage here, right? They have less control, so it might be easier just to have the bowing work like this. The player is going down bow, and then up, and then down, and then up, right? Down, up, down, up, down. So generally speaking, down bow works best at the beginning of a bar to, kind of give it a little bit more emphasis, and an up bow works best on a crescendo or on a pickup into the next bar, right? So with that particular strategy, then the players have all kinds of control. And if you are worried, oh, that's just going to make it choppy, it's going to break things up, then just mark legato, right? Piano legato right in here. And what that would do is it would just really make it feel as if it were very smoothly connected all the way through, without putting the player through these just very, very long phrases. If you look at some of Liszt's works, he will have piano phrasing on his stringed instruments, and the phrases go on a lot longer than this. And you can just find certain examples. Look at some of his scores where the slurs are impossibly long, and then just find the same thing and see how it's bowed by a professional orchestra. And that is part of the job of the concertmaster and the section leaders, to sort of figure out how to divide up all of these things in a way that's very, very smooth. So I would say that's one of the this is one of the problems, the 12 common scoring errors, right? So if you haven't had a chance, sorry about the screen jumping, damn. If you haven't had a chance to look at that, Martin, just go ahead and check it out. It's in the playlist for this particular challenge. So just go watch all of those, and think about maybe shortening some of the slurs, especially with such a slow tempo, right? 88 to the quarter note in 6/4 time. So that would be like the first thing, and then kind of going back to my concerns. Motion is quite slow, could sound static with the same approach throughout the first statement. The pitch weight is in the upper middle register of the piano. Does the treatment of the melody represent an emotional and timbral progression? So here you're thinking about some of these things, because here you put in some harp and pizzicato and so on. Now, so sounding, you can just get rid of all of this just by why does the screen skip around? Sibelius, get your act together. So essentially, this just means the same thing, right? The harpist will assume these are the notes played. So just do it that way, right? And then you don't need to write in notes sounding, notes playing, whatever. The default for the harpist is that it will. But of course, like if you want your mock-up to work, then you have to, have something. Hang on, there we go, sounding. So I appreciate that, but just think about that as a possible, in your final score. Just drop the octave, and you have to worry about sounding. And that's one of the things that, despite certain experts, disagree with me on this, and they have pointed out justifications why notation software should default to sounding pitches on written harmonic nodes. I will disagree with that. I am happy to continue to disagree. I still feel that from the very beginning, somebody should have talked to a harp player and asked them, and most harpists would say, pretty much all harpists would have said, look, I really prefer, if we just treat this as default, that the pitch indicated is the one where I'm going to put my, it's the string that I'm going to put my finger and pluck. So that means that, the harmonic node will sound an octave higher, right? Okay, so anyways, I'll get off that soapbox. And right in here, this is nice, the viola's coming in. So to get back to my whole issue of an emotional and timbral progression, right? So you are bringing in more voices, more different, bringing in a sort of a plucked element here. So how big is crescendo, right? What does that mean? So piano, then we have a little swell right in here. This is all fine, some nuance. I think that's great. And then we have another one in here. I think that you could have marked that in both the violins and the first and second violins. Okay, so crescendo, what does that mean? Diminuendo, what does that mean? Right? How big are you getting with your crescendo? So here we're seeing mezzo piano in your violas. But I have to say, a crescendo from piano to mezzo piano is really not much of a, it is really not a very significant kind of warming of the sound. What if you went all the way up to mezzo forte? Because you've got that in the harp, right? Even though the harp should be a little louder sometimes. But if you got all the way up to mezzo forte by here, or maybe even here, or what if you went up to mezzo forte by the middle of this bar, and then diminuendo here, and then had this piano semplice with a diminuendo at the end of the bar? I think that might work the best, or even a diminuendo on the fermatas. You do not have to do everything exactly the way that it is in the piano part. In fact, you have to sort of think about what fits the music better as an orchestral work, right? So just and once again, more adjusting of the slurs to fit the bowing pattern that would be more natural to a string player, right? Just think up, down, right? Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And actually, this might be like good place to slur down, or actually down, up, down, down, up, sorry, up, down, up, or up, down, and then up, down, right? And then up, down, up, down. So those are some ways of dividing the slurs across. So, but I mean, just to really come back to this idea of does the treatment of the melody represent an emotional and timbral progression? So, as you're stating it here, it's subtle, okay, and it's certainly, it does tick the box, but could you have brought in more winds, or even just some colors, just a little bit of doubling in the background, maybe some horns to warm things up? Could there have been a little bit more of a progression of the timbre? Could you have started in strings and ended in winds? I mean, there are so many different things available to you. Just all you have to do is just really, test your imagination. How far can you put it? Is it enough? Is it sufficient in capturing the, in capturing the mood of the beginning of the piece and giving yourself a kind of setting up what's going to happen on the next screen? Is it enough to just score it out in strings with just a teeny little bit of icing around it, right? Only you can make that decision, and I'm not going to judge you one way or another for how you make it, but just to point out that there are more options that you can add if you agree with me that that is a concern. And now, for the just really the melody developing and growing and blossoming. Now here I can see that you made more of an effort to divide up the slurs into more workable bowing, but we immediately sort of have a problem here that like the certain gestures are not lining up. Like for instance, you're going da, right, and where you have this motion as well, da, rest, ba 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 da 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 da, right. So like, I think that things have got to line up and agree. So here is where I think you would probably run into the concertmaster just crossing off a lot of these long slurs, especially things like this, and just telling the section leaders, look, like they probably would cross this off and just put in a slur here and just say like, and then just say like etc. or and continue and so on, and then the section leaders would, after they got the score from the score and parts from the concertmaster, would make the adjustment and so on. So yeah, so same exact thing here. Like you're saying, the melody in a singing style, right, or in very singing. So the what does that mean though, right? I was just discussing with Emily's score in the previous evaluation about how more nuance can be brought into these soaring lines, right? Not just leaving it up to the player to sort of add a little strength in the middle of each of these phrases, but writing it in, right? Da da crescendo, da da diminuendo, ba da crescendo, da diminuendo. Do you know what I mean? Like you can bring it out. It doesn't have to be huge, but just just a set of hairpins on either side of this bar line could like bring a little bit more meaning, right? And then here poco a poco crescendo from piano to mezzo forte. So that's much so you're definitely headed somewhere, right? But let's get back to the bowing of this. So this is just da da da. So so try to avoid slurring across the downbeat, slurring across the beginning of the next bar. it can get to be a situation where somebody might raise their hand and say, who's got the down bow at bar so and so, right? Because they just can't feel, like you're taking away, when you slur across, you're sort of taking away the player's ability to sense where the downbeat is, where to just really feel where that is. So it would be better to go da down bow, right, and say da down bow, right? That's way better. Now here I can see the quandary, because you don't want to have two notes under one bow, right? So you're going slur up to here and then another bow, but there's no need to do this afterwards. So this is fine. That is not going to be any problem for any string player. However, if you were to get rid of this slur, this big long phrase mark, and go down, up, down, you really might want to just have this be a single note that isn't slurred, right? So what if this were down, up, down, up, down? See what I'm saying? It's like it fits perfectly. So you could just, I'm afraid my screen is going to skip. Okay, it didn't. All right, so you could just do this, like down, up, down. Sorry, get rid of this one too. Up, and then this ends up on a nice little down bow, right? So I think that's a much safer and easier to play kind of a division of this, which doesn't take away any of its beautiful. Once again, you can just mark piano legato, right? If you really are concerned about this being as smooth as if it were bowed all the way across. And yeah, and then just as I'm saying here, oops, actually, just get rid of that. Oops. All right, so this is a much better, right? And then of course just get rid of this too, right? So da da up down, and then same thing da ba, right? So it's just really, it just has much more. It's just, it is functionally more deliberate for your string players. Now here, like I was saying in the previous evaluations for this category, it's perfectly fine for the winds to be more like peanut butter, like to really kind of smooth everything over and to have a nice long, almost phrase-like marks, breathing marks, or breathing marks. They're not breathing marks, but indicating like a longer breath being applied to a phrase, right? So that's that is totally fine, just so long as you're happy to not have a tongued note at the beginning on the downbeat, right? So da da. So I mean, if that's what you want, then great. But what if you went like this? Da da da. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of like where you want it to land. And then here, like this is totally fine for the horn player, but like it's much more secure to tongue on this, right? And it's also more emphatic in the music. Ta ta, right? As opposed to ta, like where's the downbeat, right? Like there is no, like the way that you got it, like nobody is hitting the downbeat here, right? Except for the harp player and your third and fourth horn. Okay, so yeah, so this is the scoring here is all right in terms of the division of the parts, but right here, this could be an F sharp, and the third could be playing a B. But the way that you got, them working, right? Then it really this is much more natural. However, this could have been a second horn line, and this could have been a third. These two Bs could have been third horn. However, this also works fine because it's nice to have partners who are doing parts that they can each follow a little bit better. So like here the way you've got it scored, you're partnering up the third and the fourth, and that also works great. Okay, now A2 horns pushing into this, that is going to be a very, very solid sound, right? And here you don't have to write out unisono, just just unis, right? There's like it just takes up the more that you can abbreviate things and simplify things in a score, the less visually complex it looks, right? So it's not that your players are incapable of reading things and playing things that are visually complex. It's just that it's more work for them, right? So it's kind of like using 10 words to say something you could say in 2 words, right? So using 7 letters to write something out that could be done with 4 in a period, right? So try to limit that a little bit. Now, here I would say like try to divide this a little bit more evenly. Like I see you want the dig right in here, along with the other instruments. Okay, but it's just there's one bow just really kind of arcing way across a lot of notes, right? So it would probably be easier to go down bow, down bow, up bow, right? And then just once again, if you're worried about its smoothness, just mark legato. Yeah, so just break these down a little bit in terms of their bowing, and you just get a better result. I mean, it's like not to say that the players could not do a beautiful, smooth, longer kind of a phrase, but it's just it's just unnecessary, really, especially when you consider the smoothness of the rest of the music. Right? Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about not get so caught up in the in bowing and so on. I'd say that's probably better, and just using a straight line is fine. Give the harpist a bracket here. Since you're working in Sibelius, you can do something like this. Let me see if I can find this really quickly. Is it in Harp Glissando? Right, so just get the Harp Glissando plug-in, and then just give an F sharp there. Right, so like you're obeying the key signature, right? And show tuning as a diagram. Right, so now not only do you have this diagram right in here, which is very helpful to the player, but you also have all of these MIDI objects right in here, which will play all of the notes in the glissando, right? And then as to the line, I think that this is just easier. Do you know what I mean? Just like, once again, visual simplicity. The harpist knows what it is. They don't need the little furry, jaggedy line. Okay. And yeah, so just all really easily playable by the right hand. You'll notice that I reorganized your score quite a bit just to make it more readable at a larger staff size. Okay, so I really love the way that you insinuate the instruments little by little, right? So you are bringing in first flute to double the top line of this octave, and then you bring in the first oboe to double up this, and then clarinets doubling your seconds and violas and cellos right in here. And then you are adding horns, which I think is great. But I mean, shouldn't the horns have a crescendo mark as well? Because they're increasing along with everything else. The way that you got it scored now, they'd just suddenly be loud here. So you left out a crescendo, poco a poco crescendo, in both of the parts. Okay, so the only thing I'm wondering is if you're going to be bringing in more of these instruments, bass clarinet to double up this, and so on, and then also bassoons. Could the bassoons be introduced maybe by doubling a little bit of the cellos or something like that? Could they could there be some way of insinuating their texture or their added sound into the texture so that this doesn't feel so sudden, right, in your bassoon, right? The bass clarinet is just doubling the cellos and so on. So that's all really needed. And the way that you take off here in the English horn, continuing on the line, that's all great. I really like that. But yeah, just I wonder if there's a way of bringing in the bassoons, you know, if maybe some harmonic roll, maybe playing an A fifth right in here, taking this A and inverting it down, and then going to this or something like that, just to sort of bring it in more casually with a crescendo to it, and so on. And even with the poco crescendo here, you could even add an additional hairpin to just really remind people, look, we are pushing into this mezzo forte right here, right, and then you get more of a decided surge. Now, then I think I showed everybody that third page, which I really wish that I could lecture on for you, and give you more, more of an evaluation with this, and just really talk over it more in detail. But I think that helps. I mean, when you contacted me, you are an experienced musician, and it's obvious by your credentials, and you were interested in learning more about orchestration. So I feel, I hope that this has given you some things to think about, like just simplifying the way that these instruments are slurred, and maybe thinking more about the overall arc of things. There's really nothing in this that is wrong. I mean, it's fairly playable, but it does need. I'm not going to say it's quite ready for the stands, because I think that you will want to bring out more things in this that make it more negotiable for the musician, right? And yeah, I know. I mean, you probably feel that this is just a study, but if you have access to players, if you are in touch with a small orchestra or something like that, and want to take this further, then I encourage you to. I don't think you should just say, oh well, I just wanted to learn a little bit about orchestration. That's enough for me on this, and that's fine. But there's just so much promise in that next screen, and I feel that you're on the right track with a lot of this stuff. So. With some tweakings, with some, some maybe adding a few expressive hairpins in here, or just injecting as much life and color as you can into it. I think that I think this could be a really satisfying project for you if you wanted to take it further. So, great work. So I will just stop there. Thank you, Martine, and thanks everybody for watching. Huge kudos to to all of the supporters on Patreon for making all this possible. And and just once again, all of these Minim works have been thought-provoking and have really just brought out the best in me. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for participating and sending me such cool scores. And I could talk about orchestration all day, and kind of that's what I'm doing for the next 2 months. So I have nothing to complain about besides, a mild case of food poisoning from last night, but it's nothing serious. It just kept me up a little, when I should have been sleeping. But despite all that, I'm feeling fantastic. So, anyways, thanks so much. I'm just so excited about all of this. This is me at my freshest. Hopefully, I won't get too punch drunk as the sessions continue. All right, so thanks everybody, and I will see you in the next video.